On February 12, 1909, the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People was formed in response to a riot and lynching in Springfield, Illinois. White Americans used lynching to terrorize and control black people in the 19th and early 20th centuries. From 1882 to 1968, 4,743 lynchings occurred in the U.S., about 72% of the people lynched were black. But they weren't the only victims of lynching. Some white people were lynched for helping black people or for being anti-lynching. White mobs often used dubious criminal accusations to justify lynchings. Hundreds of black people were lynched based on accusations of other crimes, including murder, arson, robbery, and vagrancy. Joplin, Missouri was no exception to this rule. Before the founding of the NAACP, Thomas Hilliard was pulled from the Joplin City Jail and hung on the street. Then the mob went after the other local black residents. While this was the only documented lynching in Joplin, blacks were persecuted in other ways, such as being forced to move from their residence. By 1915, the National NAACP was hard at work to secure the rights guaranteed in the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments to the United States Constitution, which promised an end to slavery, provide equal protection of the law, and the right for all men to vote, respectively. The National NAACP believed Joplin needed to have their own NAACP chapter. So in 1915 they came to present the opportunity. Unfortunately at the time, they were unable to get the required support. It wasn't until 1943, after the National NAACP requested a marker be installed designating the route to the birthplace of George Washington Carver, that the NAACP Joplin branch was officially chartered by founder J.F. Doc Harlow.
Mr. Harlow, we helped start the NAACP. I know he helped start the children's home, which we have a children's home over where the Boys and Girls Club is now. Mr. Harlow was very active in that process. But Mr. Harlow would come out to the neighborhood and pick up us kids to go with him, drive around with him, and help clean up Joplin. That was one thing about it. It's always good about giving back to Joplin. Mr. Harlow was very influential in that.
Doc Harlow was said to be a progressive man. He moved to Neosho in 1881 and then to Joplin in 1898. Doc worked as a miner and eventually became the owner of a mine.
There were very many influential people in there back in those days, and what I want to mention is Duncan Brown. Duncan Brown was one of the presidents, very active in the city and the city hall in getting things done, establishing a report to get black people some jobs in the city, around in the city.
They had one a black policeman before Murray and they called him Big Louis, And I guess his main job at that time was to keep the blacks in order in East Town. Mm-hmm. So the NAACP, Duncan Brown at that time was president of the NAACP, and he helped meeting with the city officials there. He said, "Well," he said, "here's the thing, Chief." He said, "We got some black boys have to leave this town to find work, And we got one policeman, black policeman, he'll be retired soon. And so we don't, what it meant. There was nobody down there that looked like us. And so I was working for the city anyway. And the chief he approached me. He said, "Well," so we're going to be taking applications pretty soon. So you might well apply. And he's already talked to the city manager. He said, we already interviewed one, which was Merle Gunn. Mm-hmm. But it wasn't my dream to be a policeman, but I've done it for 28 years. Yeah.
Ruthie L. Cox served the Joplin community as president of the NAACP from 1998 to 2014. Based on our research, she was the longest-standing president of the NAACP Joplin branch. She led the organization through countless civil and human rights complaints, celebrations, and equality initiatives. She was an active member in the community, working at LaBarge for many years, serving on various committees including many at the Negro Service Council, DBA Minnehackney Community Service Center, and she was a faithful member of Unity Baptist Church. The NAACP's leaders and members have supported the startup of several organizations, programs, and initiatives in the Joplin area that still impact the community today. A few examples are the Boys and Girls Club, the Negro Service Council, DBA Minnehackney Community Center, MSSU's MLK Day celebration, and renaming a section of Broadway Avenue after renowned poet, Langston Hughes. It's critical that we understand the laws, court system, and the judges that determine rights. Over the years, the NAACP has educated the community on laws and structures that shape our everyday lives. The local chapter has always put an emphasis on education by sharing information at meetings and hosting public panels and forums. In 1954, the NAACP hosted a very important meeting to discuss the Supreme Court ruling on desegregation and share a pamphlet of information. Today, Joplin is noted in the history books for the fairly smooth school integration in 1955.
No, got a long way to go. You know, I even think, of course, I don't even think our young people know as much about Dr. Martin Luther King as they should. Mm-hmm. That should be, I mean, you say that name, they should do just like Lincoln or anybody else. But anyway, I'm just afraid we're going backward because when George got killed, I thought that's like hanging in the street. We still got a long way to go, and I hope we're not going backward because they're even trying to take the right to vote away from us and everything. So I hope we don't look up one day, and I hope we keep paying attention to what's going on and do what we can to stop these things.
You can still walk in a store and not be acknowledged.
Going backwards in some things. We need to get together and support one another too. We got a long way to go. We come a long way, but it seems like to me we're falling off and going backwards instead of forward.
Today, the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People is the nation's largest and most widely recognized civil rights organization. It is now 2023, 80 years since the inception of the local chapter, and they continue their work to remove all barriers of racial discrimination through democratic processes.
The NAACP has been such a supportive family for me. In February, I experienced a very serious incident with Joplin PD, and being an international student and being a student of color, that was one of the most traumatic events for me. And having the NAACP there for me just helped create a comfort and give me more knowledge on how situations like the one I've been through are handled within the country as a person of color. And it helped me understand the things to expect as I settle in the United States and what to expect if I ever moved states or encountered a different situation.
For over a year, I was trying to get someone to listen to my fiance's case. He was killed in an automobile accident. And I sent a letter to the Joplin chapter NAACP, and they reached out to me. And since they got on board, it was back to back to back goodness, greatness. It's just, it did exactly beyond what I ever imagined they could have done for us. When I thought there was no one else to reach out to, I reached out to the Joplin NAACP, and they came running, and they've been behind my back, supporting me, guiding me, holding my hand, going to court with me, making sure we get all the justice this man deserves that we're fighting for. And I don't know where I'd be without them. They become family, not an organization.
The NAACP is prioritizing the preservation and accurate teaching of our history to prevent the destruction of hard-won victories and setting us back decades, if not centuries. We refuse to go back and remain committed to standing up and speaking out against regressive policies. Ensuring that Black history is told accurately and honestly is a top priority. In 2022, the NAACP Joplin branch came together with several other Black-led organizations to form a coalition to preserve Joplin's local Black history, develop Black leaders in the community, and increase voter participation. The Rock Center Coalition is made up of many parts to form one body with one mission: to continue to advance the Black community.